We ask questions now about what you think about what you think, what you comprehend. What do you comprehend about the state of the world you sit in, about the state of the world that you sit in? How do you frame events that you see? How do you frame events that you see? How do you classify information? How do you classify information? What do you make right and wrong? What do you make right and wrong? What do you give credence to and dismiss? What do you give credence to and dismiss? How do you see the world? How do you see the world? How do you see the world? How you see the world indeed claims a world for you, indeed claims a world for you. And your realization of this, and your realization of this will actually claim you as a contributor to the highest, as a contributor to the highest, not by bypassing the things you don't wish to see, the things you don't wish to see, but by claiming the inherent divine, but by claiming the inherent divine, where it always must be, where it always must be. Underline the word must. Underline the word must. You can deny the divine as you wish, but its presence is still here. But its presence is still here, and the claiming of the inherent divine, and the claiming of the inherent divine, God is, God is, God is, God is, God is, God is, recreates and reestablishes the higher current, where it has heretofore been denied, where it has heretofore been denied. Now each of you make decisions about the world you see yourselves in, about the world you see yourselves in. You decide who you should be seen by. You decide who you should be seen by, and in what ways you wish to be seen, and in what ways you wish to be seen. You dress the part. You acquire a profession. You acquire a profession that gives you an established identity, You know the name and address of where you live. You know the name and address of where you live. You invite people over. You have an idea of what your life is. You have an idea of what your life is based on the preconceptions you hold, about how you are seen, the validity of your profession, how your neighbors see you, and who accepts your invitations, the identity you've held thus far. The identity you've held thus far is in many ways contributing to an idea of self, that is codified, a frame, if you wish, that you seek to realize yourself through, when you stop realizing yourselves, through the frame of should, through prior conception about what things should be, you move to a liberated state. You move to a liberated state where what exists beyond the frame you've known, can be reestablished, outside of the boundaries, that you would once conferred upon it, that you had once confirmed upon it. What is an example, he asks? What is an example, he asks? Well, if I am this kind of a man, I would never do that kind of thing. If I take this occupation, I will never have that kind of occupation. I become friends with these people. If I become friends with these people, it is unlikely that I will ever get to know those. You understand this? Yes. You understand this? Yes. There is a preclusion in some ways. Through an identity, that has decided what it must be, in agreement to the world, when we have lifted to the upper room. When we have lifted you to the upper room, when you have claimed I am in the upper room, when you have claimed I am in the upper room, there is a prerequisite, and that is always the claim, I am free, I'm free. And that is always the claim, I am free. Now the idea of freedom still holds a bias for you, I am free of the rules of my country club. The expectations of my parents, what my spouse would have me be or do, what my spouse would have me be or do, but the claim of liberation is much greater. But the claim of liberation is much greater if you truly comprehend it. If you truly comprehend it, I am free of any idea. I am free of any idea that would coalesce identity, that would coalesce identity in a strata born in fear, in a strata born in fear. I am free of any idea. I am free of any idea of who I should be, of who I should be, to confirm a basis, that has an agreement to fear, that has an agreement to fear. I am free of any idea. I am free of any idea in limitation that would claim me, in adherence to group, collective identity that has its mandate in separation, Now, while this seems like a high list, it's the truth it expresses. It is the truth that expresses in the upper room. In the upper room, there is no rule of the country club. There is no rule of the country club. There is no political party. There is no political party. No religion. No religion. There is being. There is being. You may learn through the others. You may have a party or religion. But your relationship to these things is beyond the outlines that they have established, perhaps for convenience. You may choose to vote according to a party. You may choose to vote according to a party. Pray a certain prayer taught in a certain kind of church. There is nothing wrong with this. But you must realize that the claim I am in the upper room, holds a new bias, and that is the omnipotent divine, that cannot be caged, cannot be outlined, cannot be made so as you would wish it, The process some of you undergo in agreement to these teachings. Is a higher way of being in the world, is a higher way of being in the world. You treat your neighbors more kindly. You have an improved relationship. With your idea of self, perhaps your neighbor, perhaps God itself. But the true basis of this teaching is the resurrected self, the one who aligns as expressed in fullness, what we call the upper room, in what we call the upper room, which is the level of consciousness that the monad expresses in, Now, the monad itself is the divine. Now, the monad itself is the divine principle. It is the divine principle. You may call it the Christ. You may call it the Christ. You may call it the truth. You may call it the truth. You may call it any name you wish. It really matters not. But its agreement to be established through you. And this is the claim we have taught prior. I have come, announced in the upper room, recreates the monad as itself, as all things, In other words, quite simply put, the divine expressing as itself, agrees to all things, of like vibration, the frame that you have used, to codify a sense of reality, that dictates or mandates, of who others should be, how people should respond, how the world should even seem or look, how the world should even seem or look, is being replaced by a higher awareness, that does not exclude the divine, but claims the divine, not by effort, but through co-resonance, or alignment, or align with what is always true, with what is always true. Underline the word always true. Underline the words, always true. The divine is ever present. The divine is ever present, often eyed, in shadow, left alone while you do your best, to operate as if the divine principle, to operate as if the divine principle is simply an idea, not a way of being expressed, and not a way of being expressed. In fact, God is present in all things. In fact, God is present in all things because God cannot be absent. Because God cannot be absent. The energy which you may call God, the energy which you may call God, the one-note song, the one-note song, the one-tone song, the one-tone song that expresses as all manifestation, is always present, is always present, but in varying degrees, or gradation of vibration or tone, to claim the divine, in the most horrific instance you can imagine. In the most horrific instance you can imagine, is to know the presence of God, is to know the presence of God, where it is most been intently denied, where it has been most intently denied. To realize God, which is to know God, where God seems forgotten, is to claim the divine, the true principle of mind, the true principle of the divine in shadow, so that there may be light, the reclamation of all things, as of God, is not prettifying the scenery, is not pretending things don't happen, that you find horrible, but is re-seeing the world. It is re-seeing the world outside of the shoulds, born in separation, claimed through fear, that occupy the landscape, that you are part of creation, that you are party to the creation of. Underline that if you wish. Party to the creation of. Party to the creation of. The consciousness of any individual. The consciousness of any individual informs the landscape. The agreement by any collective, to what things mean, creates evidence of meaning, Once the meaning is known, the collective establishes ideas around it. The collective establishes ideas around it and decides what is worthy and not, be it an occupation, be it the worth of a people, or the vibration, or soul of a collective expression, which may be a country, or religious movement, It really matters not. How you hold anything in consciousness claims the thing, objectifies it, establishes it. So establish it as so. This is co-creation. Most of you, unfortunately, think that co-creation is that co-creation, looking through a magazine, is looking through a magazine and deciding what you should order next, What wonderful thing must be presented to you, but you miss the point. Your consciousness now, inclusive of all you see and experience, is claiming the world you see in like resonant accord, the manifestation of your world. The manifestation of your world is before you now. It is an outpicturing consciousness. It is an outpicturing of consciousness. You are not victimized by it. You contribute to it, because all things inform. In some ways may be subjected to movement, through conscious intent, how you intend, how you intend to perceive a thing, claims the thing, claims the thing, and the tone of the thing, and the tone of the thing, and the meaning of the thing, and the meaning of the thing, until that thing is established, until that thing is established, known and claims through the collective. Through the collective, it becomes in some ways a pillar, a totem, an idea made manifest through the collective. Here we teach you today. Here we teach you today about true authority, and what letting go really means. And what letting go really means. I want to let go of this relationship that causes me pain. I want to let go of this relationship that causes me pain. But what you must understand is that the relationship that causes you pain, your teacher perhaps is also an outpicturing of your ideas of what a relationship is, or what a painful thing must look like, or what a painful thing must look like. All our ideas first, and then known in form, and then known in form. To let go of something is to stop deciding what it must be or look like, is to stop deciding what it must be or look like, to allow something to be, and then to claim the inherent divine upon it, and then to claim the inherent divine upon it. I see you in your beauty. I see you in your beauty, in your right to be. I know who you are. I know who you are, what you are, how you serve. I see you in the upper room. Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new, are ways of agreeing to the inherent source, that is always present, but most often denied. When something is lifted from a foundation, that was once known in fear, it can only be made new. It can only be made new because fear will not lift. The upper room. It is a static energy in many ways. It replicates itself, yes. But only at the strata of tone, but only at the strata of tone that it aligns to, when we have told you in the past. Fear does not express in the upper room. Fear does not express in the upper room. It is not because fear is not allowed. It is not because fear is not allowed. We don't say no fear here. We don't say no fear here. Fear cannot align to this. Fear cannot align to this because its level of tone is of low resonance, It cannot be lifted. Now, when you bring the light to fear, when fear is known anew, it can be reclaimed. It can be reclaimed and lifted in a different way, as vibration, as energy, It can be reseen. It can be reseen or changed, altered if you prefer, by the impact of the divine, upon it. The claim, behold, I make all things new. The claim, behold, I make all things new, is a claim of truth, spoken as the monad, the divine self. The divine self in action reclaims all things in like resonant accord. You don't have to dismiss fear. You simply have to decide. That it holds no power. When you go to the upper room. I am in the upper room. I have come. You have agreements. That can then be made, to release an idea of something, that was previously known through fear, and can be now, and can be rearticulated now in the new way, of expressing the upper room holds for you, the claim, I know how I serve. The claim, I know how I serve, is the claim of expression, is the claim of expression in the upper room. In the upper room, you move to a way of being. You move to a way of being where your expression, simply the result of being, simply the result of being, reclaims all it encounters through the resonant field you hold, because you are of God and know yourself of God. Because you are of God and know yourself of God, you know all things as of God. You know all things as of God. And the process of re-seeing, letting go of the old ideas, letting go of the old ideas is intrinsic to the new state of consciousness, is intrinsic to the new state of consciousness. It is not a bulldozer. It is not a bulldozer. It is not a crane. It is not a crane lifting the boulders to the upper room, lifting the boulders to the upper room, and we've seen that they may be reseen. It is the knowing. It is the knowing of the inherent divine, in action. In action, I know who I am in truth. I know who I am in truth. I know what in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know what's truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. The claim of being. The claim of being. I am in the upper room. I am in the upper room is not a movement of the body, is not a movement of the body as much as a movement of the experience of one's being, because the monad or the Christ itself, because the monad or the Christ itself expresses in the upper room. It is its new abode. It is its true abode, and its true abode in alignment claims all things to it. Claims all things to it. When we teach through Paul, we listen to his questions. Often they come before the class. What perplexes him, what his concerns are of the teachings, We wish to tell him two things now. Everything is perfect. Everything is perfect, and everything is new, and everything is new. To understand the innate perfection, anything is to claim the inherent presence of the divine, upon the thing seen, be it what you see on the news, Now, this does not mean that there are not acts to take, There is not water to pour for the thirsty, that there is not water to pour for the thirsty, that there is not food, to give to the hungry, there is water. There is water to be poured, and food to be shared, But the inherent perfection of any situation, or any moment is the new opportunity to know God. When you start saying nothing is right, in some ways you decide that God cannot be present, in what you see, and yes, Paul will include the body, and yes, Paul, we will include the body. When you understand that this is the moment, of perfection, wherein all things are made new. You are in an offering of self. In the present moment, which is the only moment that divine may ever be known, that the divine may ever be known. We will say this now to all of you. We will say this now to all of you. You come before us with questions about your lives. You come before us with questions about your lives, those you love, those you don't like at all, you want a career, you want an established identity in the world, that will give you what you think you need. We are going to ask you today to allow each question that you ask that you ask to be considered, to be considered? Are you seeking to be reflected? Are you seeking to be reflected as you think you should be, as you think you should be? Are you willing to allow, or are you willing to allow the true self to be claimed in the situation that you are harboring, Are you willing to receive these things? Are you willing to receive these things with the new eyes you've been gifted with the new eyes that you have been gifted with? I see all things with the eyes of the Christ, a claim of truth. Now, the definition of Christ we use for the newer student, is not what you think, is not what you think. It is the aspect of the Creator. It is the aspect of the Creator that can and will be realized in material form, as and through each of you, when you align at this level. When you align at this level from the upper room, the answers come to you. The answers come to you without degradation, without having to go back downstairs, without having to go back downstairs to the lower tone, to rummage through the silt of your old fears, in the upper room. In the upper room, you may align to answers. You may align to answers, to wisdom, and to the ability to be reclaimed, as you can only be in truth, You may say these words after us if you wish. You may say these words after us if you wish. I am word through my body. Word, I am word. I am word through my vibration. Word, I am word. I am word through my knowing of myself as word. Word, I am word. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. I am in the upper room. I have come, I have come, I have come. Behold, I make all things new. It will be so. God is, God is, God is. Thank you each for your presence. We'll return in a few moments with your questions. Take 4 minutes, Paul. Take 4 minutes, Paul. Thank you.